drush it out. But do you see where he's going?
Well, I know where he's going because I know what he did.
Are you going to keep the rest of us hanging in
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Yes.
yesterday, a very significant thing occurred. There's a very famous shul in Flatbush called Frankel's, and it's no longer called Frankel's. It's called the shul looking for a new Rav, because he wanted to have a minyan in the shul, and the Balabatim locked him out of his own shul.
It's his house.
And he
The shul's in his
resigned.
house.
Oh, really? He resigned on the spot. Isn't he a son of the Alpha?
Yes.
Yep.
And he resigned on the spot, and he gave a 1-hour speech. And the gist of it is that Agudah is not looking for ways to open up the shuls. Agudah is looking for ways to shut down shuls, and that just doesn't synchronize with his hashkafa, with what he was brought up with. And because of that, he can no longer be part of the shul.
Wait, did he resign before or after the drasha?
If he was smart, he would have resigned before the drasha, because as a guest rabbi, people would have probably listened better.
I didn't understand. What?
Akiva, instead of playing a video today on the Malachas, I could just play that. But that we can only do in 5-minute clips because it's 55 minutes.
There's a whole movement out in New York about this.
How's he connected to the Agudah? I don't understand.
Because the Agudah is the ones that are putting out these guidelines. They're trying to act as a cohesive body to.
That's his shul. He could determine whatever he wants.
Right. But people are listening to the Agudah because it's just.
So his Balabatim are listening.
It's an unaffiliated. Yeah. It's Balabatim are regular.
He just ruined his father's chances of being the next Rosh. And
for Rabbi Zwibel, who's going to be on Sunday.
But it says L'yimsu avos halbonim. It says L'yimsu avos halbonim.
Couldn't he just wait for a very long time? Or increase the chances of his father? Which one?
That's terrible.
What choice, if he believes that he's in a sense fell on his sword? That's what he did.
He made a famous sholem. There's a famous kiddush every week in that shul. It's known more for the kiddush than anything else.
That's another problem he has with the Agudah, is that they don't know our kiddush clubs. It's another issue.
Which place are we talking about?
Right.
I got the clip.
Akiva, are we ready?
Yeah. You go. You could say.
I'm not the host. I'm still not the host.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay.
And I forgot who the sponsor is.
It's the same as yesterday. Gans and Lieberson.
Oh, I thought there was a special sponsor for last night. Last night was a special sponsorship.
No, it was the same as.
How was the show last night? Was it good?
Oh, I got it. It was very, very good.
Who's that Moish? Who's the Moish that asked the question? The question that wasn't a question that didn't end.
It's somebody who's a big believer in litigation. It's someone who would run to the Supreme Court if you looked at him the wrong way.
Oh no! Akiva, you changed his name on the screen?
No, I didn't catch him. Usually when I see that he's on, I think it's Schmoozes. Now I know this name. He changed it from last time.
Yeah.
So I couldn't recognize him, but I recognize.
Now I really have
voice.
to go listen.
His cousin is on the Supreme Court. It makes sense. I was going to say Morley. It runs in the family.
Oh, you just let the cat out of the bag.
That's okay.
What was that lashon he used for the Rebbeinu Shalom that they applied to the Supreme Court? What was that lashon?
Meloch kol haaretz mishpat.
Yeah, Meloch kol haaretz mishpat. In other words, the whole world is controlled by the court system instead of Meloch kol haaretz kavodah.
So if in the government, they have law, if the government appoints a minister who you don't like, you can petition the Supreme Court to try to have that person removed. So they give no power to any other body except for themselves.
Something fitting about a Jewish state that is run by a committee of judges.
Right.
It's back to Shoftim, it's just totally not.
Right. Now, I'm sure we can find a comparison in Nach that there was a group of this kind of people who said.
What do you mean? There's a whole safe. There's a whole sefer, Shoftim.
But Shoftim were appointed by God, chosen by God. This is self-appointed people. This is your Ravim ben
I think
Nevat.
Aaron Barak also thinks he was appointed by God.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
No, I think that was his
I
point.
know what's best for you.
They also think they were appointed by God,
Right.
who doesn't exist, but
Right.
nevertheless.
No, Shoftim were appointed by people. And the pasuk says, Shoftim v'shotrim titen locha. Make for yourselves Shoftim. It doesn't, they weren't appointed by God.
The people chose them. Okay, so at least you could say it's a semblance of democracy if people chose them. And they didn't make rules, therefore nobody else can take over, and then they have to decide everything about a person's life. This has sounded to me more like we learned in the Gemara about, was it Shmuel's children who said, let me have part of the korban, everything has to go through me, right? If you want to get into the base of Mikdash, I'm your man.
Isn't that Jesus? Wasn't I confusing them? all faith has to go through
me. Is that what he said?
All belief, yeah. Well, and that's what the New Testament says that he said.
So today's broadcast is sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Jack and Jody Gass, Lenishmus Reb Tzvi ben Reb Moshe, whose yahrzeit is today, 26 a year. So Herschel, I remember Herschel, Tzvi v'atzedek, Sevein. I remember him well. I remember that my mother once sent me to go shopping, so I went with my bike, and there was a whole list of stuff that I was supposed to bring back from Gans Bakery, and it was too much for me. So Mr. Gans says, "Kim out a minute." He opened up his station wagon. He says, "Throw your bike in the back." So I put my bike in the back. Come in the car, and then he drove me home with all my taklach.
Where was Gans Bakery?
It was Carmel.
It was Carmel Bakery.
Oh, it's Carmel. It was ever called Gans? Was it
No,
called
it was
Gans?
always Carmel.
It was always called Gans, like the yeshiva is called the Finchi Yeshiva. Gans Bakery, the Finchi Yeshiva. It's all part of the same. It's all part of the same vernacular. It's also the broadcast is also sponsored by the Lieberson family. Is it Elon Nishmas anybody?
No, it's a Shevach Vaydat Rabbeinu Shalom. Their daughter was delivering packages for Beis Yaakov, and that car that was driving like crazy on Bathurst Street hit them. And they were mamish nisim that nothing happened to them.
Really? When did that happen?
I don't know if Shmuel Zahn. I think it happened Sunday.
Yeah,
It was
guys,
Sunday last week.
Schwartz on drugs. That guy. Did you see the video?
Right.
Of that guy? Wow.
Yeah, I could show
He
you
was
that
driving,
video.
He was driving southbound in the northbound lanes. Wow, I didn't know he hit anybody.
Well, he hit a car. He didn't hit people, but he hit 4 or 5 accidents.
I didn't know. I thought he just hit himself. Wow. Baruch Hashem. Okay.
I also have something nice. That Moshe Weinberg did a shidduch yesterday.
Yeah.
His daughter became a kala in Lakewood.
I didn't know how to.
It was Yud Chesed. It's also Yesod Shiva Yesod, which is the mitzvah Yesod is the mitzvah of Kedusha Seinayim and Shmir Sabris. So there's a lot of people who have a minute to go to Yosef at Tzadik's Kaver and daven on the sphere of Yesod Shiva Yesod. And the Ramchal was niftar on that day, and today was also the first day of the 6-day war, where all 3 air forces of Syria, Egypt, and Jordan were wiped out within about 12 hours.
Today's the 20th. Oh, no, today's May.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Hebrew date of Yud Ches Iyar. So there was a tremendous atzlacha that Reb Hashem gave through Nisim to Klal Yisrael, and by the end of that day, they had Yerushalayim surrounded already. It wasn't until the next day that they actually got into Harabais and took over Harabais. The famous Harabais B'Yadenu was actually tomorrow, which was Chav Tes year. It's also Reb Sadia Goyen's yahrzeit, and it's the Ramchal's yahrzeit as well, like we mentioned. It's also the Ramchal, believe it or not, the Vilna Goyen wrote about the Ramchal of Moyer de Gezach. What he wrote was, I want to read it inside because it's so awesome. He died at a very young age. He died with his whole family in a plague, incidentally, at 39 years old. And he had accomplished so much in his life. And when he wrote to Mesilas Yesharim, he was actually a diamond cutter in Amsterdam. He was sort of hidden. He did it undercover. so he wasn't. He made sure not to make himself famous. So I think he quotes the Vilna Gaon. They even say that the Vilna Gaon, the reason why he wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael and he aborted is because he wanted to go be a Talmud of the Ramchal, and he aborted because he found out that the Ramchal died. But what the Gaon writes was that nobody ever had a better knowledge of Yiddishkeit than the Ramchal. I want to just read exact nusach. Yeah, the Vilna Gaon declared that the Ramchal had the most profound understanding of Yiddishkeit that any mortal human could ever attain. That's a very strong statement to make. And then I want to share a story of what Chaim Tzvi told us once. It's a beautiful story because it's also the yahrzeit of Reb Chaim Volozhiner's son, who's Reb Yitzchok. Reb Yitzchok and Reb Chaim Volozhiner, it's his yahrzeit today as well. And he was a very wealthy man. In addition to being the Rov of Volozhin and the Shiva Volozhin, which he supported with his own money for the first couple of years until it was able to raise enough. He was an askin on behalf of Klal Yisrael, and he was close to the Russian Tsar. And I'm going to say over at Maisha that Chaim Tzvi said about Reb Yitzchok and Reb Chaim Volozhin. And the discussion that the Tsar had is, you always daven, the Jews daven for the Shalom HaMalchus. But what good is it if Jews everywhere daven for the Shalom HaMalchus? I'm the king of Russia. I think the example Chaim Tzvi gave was Germany. If I'm feuding with Germany and the Jews in Germany are asking for Shalom HaMalchus, well, if Germany does well, that's going to push me down. And if I do well, it's going to push him down. So how is it that your tefillos could possibly work? Chaim Tzvi, did I get the question right?
You did. That's the question.
Okay.
He gave me
so
the
he answered, since this fellow, this Russian Tsar had sponsored the translation of the Jewish prayers. So he says, since Your Majesty has had the prayer for the welfare of the leaders translated, because you're asking that question, he must certainly have noticed that in the Tefillah, we also quote a pasuk that refers to Hashem as a noisein bayam derech ubamayim azim nesiva. The Rebbe makes a path in the sea and a lane in fierce waters. Did you ever wonder why that pasuk is linked to this tefillah that we're davening for the Shalom HaMalchus? So the answer is very simple. A ship that wants to travel west needs the wind blowing from east to west. And if the ship wants to travel east, the wind needs to blow from west to east. How is it possible that both ships would be satisfied at the same time? And they are, because the pasuk says, "Hanoishin bayom derech v'mayim azim nesiva." The Torah says Hashem is so great that He could satisfy both needs, even though it seems like they're polar opposites. Only Hashem could make both things work out. And I believe that's what Chaim Tzvi said over, and that was the chap of Reb Yitzchok Volozhin who was talking to the Russian Tsar. Okay, today's Gemara is not such a difficult Gemara, so it should be relatively easy to go through. So Dr. Haley Gemara, we're at the bottom of Ayin Daled, Omer base, all the way to the bottom. We learned about Boyer yesterday. We spent most of our day learning yesterday about Boyer, but we learned also about some other malachas. We learned about labein. We learned about spinning. Okay, we learned about cutting and mincing, which was also a problem. Okay, so let's see the end of the Gemara. Hakereya almanas litvar. If someone tears almanas to sew. Kriya, the Mishkan mihava. Was there ever a need for tearing a beged in the Mishkan? So Gemara Rabba, Reb Zera, Damri Tevayu, Rabba and Reb Zera, that both said the same thing. Shekain Uriah Shenafal Darna, if a moth ate through a hole in one of the uriahs, it had to be sewn up. If you sew a circular hole, it's going to cause the beged to bunch up. It doesn't look very nice. So what they would do is, they would make a tear at the top of the hole a couple of inches, at the bottom of the hole a couple of inches, and now it becomes a long, straight tear. And you sew it up. So you see that they had to tear for the benefit of sewing in the Mishkan, in the running of the Mishkan. or the preparation of the areas for the Mishkan, and that's why tearing is also. Omer of Zutri Batovia Omer Rav, Hamatech Chud Shel Tefir b'Shabbos. What if your button is loose and you pull the thread and it tightens up? Chayiv Chatos, that would make someone be Chayiv Chatos. That would be considered sewing. Actually, what it would be considered is the subject of a machlokes rishonim. Rashi says when you pull the chut, matech Rashi chut lahadek ulachaber zuit firasi v'chayiv. That's sewing. However, the Rambam has another way to look at it, and the Rambam says it's called midarchei tefira. It's not actually sewing; it's midarchei tefira. What's the difference between the Rambam and Rashi? We learned yesterday that if you stitch, meaning you put the needle in and then back out again, it's not considered sewing unless you knot both ends of the thread, because otherwise it's going to come out. Well, if you learn this is tefira, so that when you tighten it up, you'd have to make a knot in it in order for it to be considered sewing. But according to the Rambam, that it's not the malach of tefira, it's just midarkei tefira. That means just pulling it alone would constitute the isser, even if you didn't make a knot. Zot tehil more weiter. Omer b'zutri b'tovia Omer Rav Hamatech Chud Shel Tefira b'Shabbos Chayiv Chatos v'aloy mid dover echad min hamogush. If you learn anything from a mogush, and we'll see what a mogush is, and a mogush is not necessarily Hungarian, even though it sounds Hungarian. If you learn anything from a mogush, you're chayiv misa. V'hayedeya l'chashiv tkufo shubazolis. Someone who understands how to calculate the calendar and the cycles of the moon. So it's a shayla means an astronomer, or the shayla even means an astrologer. The einay choshev, and he doesn't do those calculations. Also, that'll be also. So an astronomer is just someone who can figure out the times and the months and the days and the weeks. But an astrologer also understands from the setup of the stars and the setup of the mazolis compared to the dates. He could figure out certain things about what's going to be and about people. So it's a shadow what that means. But if a person had the ability to learn that and didn't engage in learning that, also l'saper heimenu, you're not allowed to say over Torah from him. So now let's go back to what this magush is. Magushta, what's a magushta? Rav Omar, Rabbi Shmuel. There's a dispute between Rabbi Shmuel as to what this is. Chad Omer Charshi, and Rashi says Charshi is of a chashiv, a kishiv macher. The Chad Omer Gedufi, and the other one says it's a Gedufi, and Rashi says it's a min ha'odek b'avodah zarah. U'megadef tomid es Hashem. U'mesis adoshim b'avodah zarah. So he's a apikoros, and he looks for every opportunity to curse Hashem and to draw people to avoid Zarah. Let's bring a raya to Rav the Omer Gedufi. Let's say it's Rav who says that an Amgusha is a Gedufi. Now our Gemara says that if you learn anything from a Magush, you're Chayiv Misa. So we want to say that Rav learns that if you learn anything from a Baal Avodah Zarah, who's Mechar from the God after Rebbeinu Shalom, if you learn something from him, you're Chayiv Misa. If someone learns something from the Magush, Chayiv Misa. If you're going to say that all it means is somebody who's a magician, who said you're not supposed to learn from a magician? Haksiv, it says, you should not learn from a magician to copy his ways because you want to learn how to do it and then you're going to practice it yourself. But Avada, you're allowed to learn all about Kishif because the halach is mechashefa lo sechaya. You have to kill mechashefa. Well, how are you going to know if you're on Bezdin, how are you going to know if this person that you want to paskin upon him or her, whether or not they're mechashef, how do you know what the symptoms are? So you need to learn Kishif yourself so that you would understand exactly what it is, and then you can make a judgment call on it. So you have to be an expert in any subject matter that you might judge upon. So you see, you're allowed to learn it. So how could you say, since we know that a Magush, if you learn from a Magush, you're Chayiv Misa, clearly it can't mean a Kishiv Macher, because Avada, you are allowed to learn from a Kishiv Macher. So it must be that a Magush, who you're Chayiv Misa, if you learn from him, it must be that's a Macharif and a Megadev as Hashem. If I remember correctly, we learned in the Gemara once, and I don't remember which Masechta it was, but if I remember correctly, Shol Shaul, and I don't mean Shaul Anisalt. King Shaul went, and I say King Shaul, and I don't mean Shaul Anisalt. Shaul went, he pulled up Shmuel. He went to a woman who was a kishif macher, and he had her pull up Shmuel's neshama. He had him pull up Shmuel from the dead. And the question is, where did Shaul have any interaction, any connection with a kishif macher? You know, Shaul was a king. He was protected. He didn't have connections and relationships with bad people. The teretz is, she was the woman expert. She was the expert witness that Chazal, that the Bezdin of those times would call when they needed to know anything about kishif, when they were passing on the Shiloh of kishif. So she was the government expert in all things kishif. And that's the woman who Shaul went to.
Wow, who says this?
We learned it once in the Gemara.
This is great. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's how she found it. That's how he found her. Zok to Gemara, and then she got unmasked. Okay. Zok to Hilig Gemara.
Hey, wait a second, Yossi. So then why did she not recognize him? Why was she afraid of him? Why did he have to go to her incognito?
I guess because he still was doing something. Everyone would want to know what was he doing there.
Okay, I don't want to get off subject.
What do you mean? He was applying kishuf. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, but nobody knew that because he was reaching out there. If there was already a connection, Chaim was asking, nobody knew what was going on behind closed doors. But the question is, why was he even looking for her? So he did it incognito, so no one should see him looking for her, because why would he be looking for her?
He wanted to consult with Shmuel. What do you mean why?
Because that's something that's not allowed.
Yeah, of course, it wasn't
So
allowed.
That's why he had to do it.
Not as discussion for now.
If she was the expert witness, right, and she was such a tzaddikus because they used her, then why did he have to come upon her with deception? He could have told her, he should have been telling her the way things were. He came upon her, looking to take care of this type of, to do something illegal. It doesn't seem to jive, even though it's a good chap. Where is this Gemara?
I wish I knew. I wish I was involved in the Zichru program, and then I would be able to tell you right off the bat where it was.
Where's Professor Mann?
Yeah, where's the professor?
Don't need him. It's probably in Sanhedrin where the Gemara talks about how this is bizarre.
I'll tell you one thing. I commend you, Yossi Zalman, that you seem to remember all the Narishkeiten and many of the stories that everybody else says.
I don't consider those Narishkeiten.
Okay, you're right. The stories that people tell you, you seem to remember them and being able to say in their, whoever told it to you.
I'm afraid, Lachem Versum, they're going to say, the gedenkst the Gemara, the Narishkeiten as the gedenkt. And there, I won't be able to distract everyone from saying, let me tell you a good joke. Omer Shimon ben Pasi.
Okay, it's just a side question for Shmuel. This happened after, obviously, Amalek and Agog. Shmuel and Shaul didn't end up on such good terms. Well, how did Shaul think that he was going to go back and knock on Shmuel's door again? I don't know if Dave had an answer for that. But
No. This was a critical time. They were fighting, I forgot who. I think it could have been the Plishtim. And he ended up losing this battle, and he was killed right after this. Him and his son, Yonasan, I believe.
That's when Shmuel told him he's pitching tonight.
That's right. That's right.
Right, but
so everything was at stake. He didn't know what to do. He
was out of desperation.
Of Klal Yisrael was at, it was a critical moment in history.
He knew he lost the Milch already. He knew it already. He lost it already at Amalek a few years earlier.
But he wanted to know, what do we do now? So he had no one to turn to. So he consulted Shmuel from the grave.
I guess that's...
Shmuel had not his yahrzeit. He also died like 52. He died. He was very young.
Yeah,
his yahrzeit is in 2 days. His yahrzeit is Chavtes year. And his caver, they don't know where his caver is. But his caver is, they say it's just north. It's in a place called Roma. They say it's just north
That's right. It has a name.
After 436.
Nabi Samuel.
That's right.
I wouldn't say that they ended off on bad terms, Akiva. I mean, the pasuk says that Shmuel Anovi davened for Shaul all night and all day. So, he felt bad for him, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu tore the Melucha away from him. But they didn't end on bad terms, like contemporaries, like the way we think of it today. I think they loved each other.
Okay, so I guess
Shmuel Anovi had Ahavas Yisrael, even for those who were not baining them. Okay, let's hear this. Omer B'Shem B'Pazi, Omer B'Shem B'Levi. Shumar Kapar. Kol Yidei L'Chashav B'Tkubus U'Mazolos V'Ein HaChoshev. Someone who has the ability to learn these things and doesn't. Zog to Gemara. All of HaKasav Omer V'Espoyel Hashem Lo Yagbitu. He didn't look into the workings of Hashem. U'Maisa Yodov. And the Maisim of the Rabban Shloilam Leiro he didn't see. Omer B'Shmuel Bar Nachmani Omer B'Yechanan. Minayin Shemitzvah Ala Odom L'Chashav Tkufos U'Mazolos. How do you know there's actually a mitzvah to look into Tkufos U'Mazolos? Shenemar it says U'Shemartem V'Asisem. Ki Chachmaschem U'Vinaschem. It's talking about the Torah, of course. Ki Chachmaschem U'Vinaschem La'enei Ha'amen. It's your Chachma La'enei Ha'amen. And the pasuk goes on and says Asher Yishmun Esachukim Ha'ela V'Amru Rak Am Chacham V'Novin Ha'Goy Agod Lozeh. We want to be known. Klal Yisrael wants to be known for our wisdom and for our chachma, which plays into the theme of Sal, of Sal, the accidental Talmudist. We are known. We have to keep the Torah because we have to be known by the nations that we have wisdom. So he asked a good question. A goy, unlike what Sal Litvak thinks, a goy is not impressed with a shtickle of Kiv Eger and a shtickle of Rambam and Alumdus. That's not what turns him on. Ezei chachma uvina shehi la'enei amen. What type of chachma can we possess that the Enoi Am would also appreciate and be wowed by? Have Omer zechishuv t'kufos u'mazolos. That's working on t'kufos u'mazolos. Why is that so significant? So Rashi says shechachma hanikerasi. It's something that's very obvious. Shemar lahan siman advarav. He can actually make predictions and show them factually where those predictions come from. Like Behilach Chachama v'mazolos sheme'idin kedvarav. He could show and demonstrate how the stars and sun and moon are actually supporting what he's saying. Sho'omer sonu shu b'shuma, he could say it's going to be a wet year, and he can tell. He came, and it turns out that way. Or shonu shechuna, or I think shechuna is a dry year. He came. Shekol ha'itim with mahalach hachama b'mazel esel moel esel b'mazel tali hakol b'mazel tali. So this is astrology. Everything is totally the mazel. I mean, we're the maidim in the mazel, but as far as the natural occurring things in the world, they're totally in astrology. When the sun rises, at what point is the constellation in the sky, like we learned earlier in Brachos. So knowing that chachma and being able to make certain predictions is something that we should be involved with, because that demonstrates to the rest of the world the supremacy of the chachma of Torah. There's a lot of Torah about it, but he brings down from Reb Moshe Horowitz, who's one of the many Meforshim that are normally in the back of Gemaras, not in the back of the Archko Gemara, but in the back of the normal Gemaras. He says it's important for every Talmud Chacham to be considered, to make himself considered respectable and honorable, and especially wise amongst the Goyim. So as a Talmud Chacham shouldn't only be a orangutan in learning, he has to be a person who understands things of the world. And the Ben Yehoyada says that someone who doesn't do it. Yeshiva. I'm sorry?
They don't teach that in yeshiva.
The Ben Yehoyada says, and that if someone does not engage in the chachma of the world, meaning he's not going to uncover all of the chachma of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Chachma of nature is the Rebbeinu Shalom chachma. If someone's not interested in all that, then you don't learn Torah from him, because he doesn't deserve for his Torah to be learned if he doesn't appreciate the full godless of the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's interesting how chachma is equated with knowing mazolis and knowing astronomy. And Rabbi Elfin cited two examples, famous examples that we're aware of where you see that was very valued. First of all, in the Megillas Esther, Achashverosh asked by the Yodei Ha'itim, people that knew times, people that understand astronomy and astrology, those were in the world accepted as the wise people of the world. And even when Korach, when he assembled his Ada, it also says Kriya Meliate. And the Gemara Sanhedrin explains that means they knew how to be Kvei Shonim and Kvei Chadoshim. They understood astronomy well. So that astronomy and astrology are considered areas of academia that show true wisdom that people are very impressed with. As a matter of fact, someone told over. I'm sorry.
What's connection to Torah though? I don't see the connection.
Well, I guess a lot of these chachmas are available in the Torah as well. So you could learn these chachmas through the Torah.
Show me where.
I'm not going to be able to help over there, but I can tell you we learned a lot about it in Brachos, right? There's a whole sugya about it in Brachos that we struggled to understand. It's quite complicated. When we get up to those Gemaras, those are always going to be a hard day for us. But if you engage in them and you go deeply into them and you get clarity in them, that makes you a respectable person, because that's knowledge that's respected everywhere.
Somebody once asked how the Goyd became so proficient in mathematics when it is said that he only wasted 2.5 minutes per year on Dvorim B'Telem. And the answer I heard that was given is that the Goyd learned mathematics in the John.
Right. It's interesting that you say that, because there's actually a shaila in the Gilyoinei Ashas. If since these things are of prime importance and they're connected to Torah, are you allowed to learn these things in the bathroom? He actually declares if you're allowed to learn these things in the bathroom, especially since the Torah says about them, Ki chachmaschem uveinaschem. So he actually asks a shaila about that.
Oh, wow.
And as a matter of fact, he also brings down that the reason why we mentioned the Moiled in Birchas Rosh Chodesh, which we're going to be doing this week, has nothing to do with what we think, that you can't be Mekadosh the Chodesh without knowing the Moiled. Absolutely not. He says it's merely an area of Chachma that we have, that we want to reinforce in our own minds. We want to announce it and be proud of it that we have it. And that's why we make sure that once a month announce the Moiled to demonstrate the supreme Yediyah, the superior Yediyahs that Klal Yisrael has in these things. He also asked the Shabbos in Kiddush of Yom Tov, we say Asher B'Chavonu Mikol Ha'amim V'Roimimonu Mikol Lashon. Yet we don't say that on Shabbos. We only say that on Yom Tov. And the answer is because we know Shabbos is a Sarusha de La'ela. Whether or not we do anything, the Kedusha Shabbos comes by itself. But Yom Tov is a Sarusha de Lasata. We have to bring in Yom Tov, because by us determining when Rosh Chodesh is, we're actually in control of bringing in the Yom Tov. And that's why only by Yom Tov do we say Asher B'Chavonu Mikol Am, V'Ramon Mikol Lashon, because we're greater, because we actually have the power to control times of when Yom Tov is. And of course, we all know that if a girl was 3 years old and she was Nevela, so she's a Be'ula, but if they then make an extra month to the year, they make an Ibrior, and it turns out that her birthday didn't come yet, so retroactively, she is now not 3 years old, then her Basulim come back. So the Rabbanim have the koyach to make a psak halacha that actually impacts the Metzias as well. Someone sent me thank you very much. Someone sent me a photocopy of the Moshe Feinstein book, and there was a story where when Moshe Feinstein was a small Stottsrov in Russia, every day after the children who were forced to go to the local schools that were Goyish schools, where their teacher was constantly trying to undermine Torah and speak about how ancient and nonsensical it is, they would come to Reb Moshe, and he would every day teach them hashkafa, how to counter their teacher's arguments. So one day the teacher says, "Where do you get all these arguments from? These sound arguments from?" So he said, "Oh, we get it from our rabbi." So he said, "From your rabbi? You're listening to your rabbi? Your rabbi doesn't know anything. Look, we're learning calculus. Ask him a calculus question. He knows nothing. And him you're going to listen to?" Sure. The next couple of days, they didn't come to him. And he knew something was amiss. So he went looking for them. He says, "Where are you guys?" So they said, "Well, our teacher said that we shouldn't speak to you because you don't know anything. You don't even know calculus." They were embarrassed to tell him, but he approached them. So he says, "What do you mean? Ask me any calculus question you have." So they asked me. They asked him a question. He says, "Indeed, I don't know the answer, but give me your book." and come back in an hour. So Reb Moshe learned the calculus, and in an hour he gave them he gave them the answer to the equation. They went back and said, our rabbi gave us this answer. She was blown away. So she said, okay, ask your rabbi this question, which was even more difficult than the first problem. And again, he solved it. And day by day, she would come up with the most difficult calculus mysteries that even she didn't understand. And she would send them to Reb Moshe, and Reb Moshe would always have the answer for her, till the point where she became a very big chused of Reb Moshe, and she told the Goyim that there's someone amongst the Jews who has a superior knowledge to calculus, more superior than our greatest mathematicians.
Yossi. Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. In Yeshiva, Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg, he addressed the question, this issue of the gra that they say that he learned in the bathroom. So he said it's absolutely not true. That if the gra understood that it was important to learn mathematics, so he put his mind to it, and he dealt with it as a serious limud.
The Vilna Goyim.
Yeah.
Rabbi Engel said it as recently as Sunday. Those who listened to that interview and joined us on Loop Radio, which is on twice a week, by the way, on Sunday and Tuesday, and we'd love if you join it. But yeah, Shlomi Feintuch came up and said, what about secular studies? And Rabbi Lowy said, there's no such thing as secular studies. Everything is about being able to enhance the Torah and decorate the Torah, and it helps us understand the Torah. He's quoted that from Rabbi Gifter.
Beautiful. Okay,
sorry about that plug, product placement.
I remember Rabbi Gifter. He was very into learning secular studies. If he hated when people spoke in the language called Yeshiva Charade, Epis Grada Gewaltig Zach, he hated it. And when a Bacha would speak that way, he would say, you can't speak a straight sentence in English. Un Yiddish redst du euch nicht wie ein Mensch. Do you know what that makes you? An ignoramus. That's what he used to say. Zot hele Gemara weiter. Hatzod Tzvi. We're talking about it's from Hershel's roadside. So Hatzod Tzvi, Vichap Hershel, that's one of the malachis of capturing a deer. Tana Rabban. Hatzod Chalozin. If one captures Chalozin, which is really what the malacha was for the Mishkan, they didn't trap deers. If you trapped a Chalozin for the Mishkan, the Chalozin is, of course, the fish that some people say is the murex, is the fish that we make tchelas out of. And you squeeze it, and Rashi says, to get out its blood, and I assume its blood is what was used as the dye. So the halacha is, you'd only be chayiv for tzad, there's no chayiv for squeezing it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer chayiv shtayim. Rabbi Yehuda holds there would be a chayiv for squeezing out the blood as well. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, psia bechalal disha. Psia is in the category of disha. So therefore there would be both the chayiv of tzad and there would be the chayiv of disha as well. Omer Loi, they told him back, Rabbanan who hold in chayiv al-achas told him, ein psia bechalal disha. Squeezing out blood from this chalozin would not constitute the malach of disha. And Rashi says, shemafarak dameh hemenu kemafarak tfu mikashim shalah. He holds it would not be considered like that. My time, Amarava, my time of the Rabban. What's the reason why it's not? You are squeezing something out. It should be similar to separating the kernels from the stalk of chita. So tomorrow kasavri and disha ela legedula karka. Disha only applies to things that grow from the ground, unlike a balchai, unlike a fish or a snail, which disha does not apply to. In fact, the Gemara for the chayiv nami mishum netilas neshama. When you're squeezing it, you're killing the worm. So why aren't you chayiv for that? Reb Yochanan shapatzay meis. It's speaking when we're talking about you squeezed it after it died already. So you didn't kill it. There's only a question of dosh. Rav Omer, even if you squeeze it while it was alive, and because you let its blood out, you also killed it. Misaseku etzel netilos neshama. You're being misasek because that's not what you're trying to accomplish. What you're trying to accomplish is get the blood out. You're not trying to kill it.
Why isn't it psikration? Or is it a psik?
That is such a beautiful kasha. I can see that you're right on the ball. Freak the Gemara, Babayev Ravad Amri Tavayu, Mojdab Shim psik Velayomus. Exactly your kasha. Zok the Gemara. Let me see if I get the Bach. Shiny Hacha, the Kamo, the Ispe Nishama, Tvei Nichalei. This is a psik the Lo Nichalei, because he doesn't want to kill it. He would rather the worm stay alive. Why would he rather it stay alive? The ink is better. It's like a vampire. A vampire only sucks the blood of a live victim, because once it's dead, the vampire is repulsed by its blood. The dye is much better if it's coming out of a live chalazon, and of course it's a psik. So there's a lot of stuff on here. The first problem here is, why is this called misasik? So let's see what Rashi says. So let's think about it. We know what misasik is. A guy who wanted to pick up a knife and he ended up cutting something. Or he wanted to pick up something that was tallish and he ended up pulling something out that was mechuber. So that's not misasik with davar acher. I'm actually doing this case here. I'm actually doing the same thing that I want to do. I want to squeeze out blood. So that shouldn't be misasik. So Rashi is very shver, who learns that it's misasik. It's really a davar she'eina mechavan. But Rashi does say at the end, it's a davar she'eina mechavan. Because although I'm doing this exact avodah, this exact action, I don't want to kill it. And it's a psikrisha. So that's why it's going to be allowed. Tosfos actually says a little bit different. Tosfos says that since you're damaging it, it's like makalta b'chavbura, and even though you're doing the same avodah, it automatically is downgraded. We consider it misasik because you don't really want to do it, and it's causing damage to you when you kill the animal. One who shechs this tzvi is chayiv mishum shoichet. So, afraid the Gemara, shoichet mishumai chayiv. Why are you chayiv because of shoichet? And the reason, the reasoning of the Gemara Shaila is, in order to, where in the Mishkan do we need to chad and to shecht animals? It's lagabe, the rams that they used for the hides. Well, to use the hides, they didn't have to shecht the animal. They could have strangled them to death. It's not karbonis. For a carbon, it has to be shechted properly. But just to extract hide, you're allowed to use hide from a non-kosher animal. Like there's a very famous story with a lady called Reb Bik, and Reb Bik didn't have patience for stupid questions. So a lady once asked Reb Bik, I bought myself a pigskin purse. What should I do? So Reb Bik says, "Es es nicht, don't need it." And then he hung up the phone. So the same thing here, you don't have to shecht. So why is shechita considered a malacha? I understand killing is a malacha, but shechita is considered a malacha. Where is shechita required? Rav Omer mishum tzeveya. Shechita will be also because of tzeveya. What in the world does shechita have with tzeveya? So I believe Rashi says, shachad by mechayiv. Does he say mishum tzeveya? He doesn't say. It's because the neck of the animal gets full of blood, gets red, and you're dyeing the neck of the animal. So if someone does shechita, there's no special malacha for it. There's killing. And then there's tzeveya, and that would be the isser, the additional isser if you shecht. Shmuel Omer mishum netilas neshama. There is no additional isser. The isser that you're over with shechita is the same isser you're over for any other killing an animal, and that's called netilas neshama. Zok Gemara. How about yes?
Was there's no netilas neshama listed in the Mishnah? I would have thought it's the
shoichet that we're talking about of the tzvi. It's not really an isser because of the shechita. It's the isser because you're taking its life.
Oh, that is the isser. So
correct.
So is that that's the av. It's not a tolda of shechita. Just the opposite almost.
That's the av. Shechita is irrelevant. Right? Shechita is irrelevant. The malach is not shechita. The malach is netilas neshama. If you want to give him an extra patch because of shechita, you have to go looking for why it should be also. And that would only be because of tzeveya. Zok Gemara, mishum tzeveya in mishum netilas neshama loy. Are you suggesting that when Rav said al tzeveya there is no issue netilas neshama? Zok Gemara, of course not. Ema av mishum tzeveya. I'm not saying that the main issue is not netilas neshama. But there's an additional problem when you shech that there'll be a problem with Tzaveh. Now that sounds like a little far-fetched. I always hate when they're both have to twist themselves in a pretzel to make something usher. We want to hear them twist themselves into pretzels to make something mutter. So Rav was conscious of that. Omer Rav, Milsa da Amri, this thing that I said that could raise eyebrows as to why I'm sort of looking to make a chumrah, Ema ba Milsa, let me explain myself a little bit. So that future Dari shouldn't laugh at me as if I'm trying to twist myself into a pretzel to find an Isser. I'm going to tell you. Tzeveya, b'may nichale, why is he happy with Tzeveya? Nicha, the Lizvis Beis HaShrita Dama, it's actually a real benefit. We're not just hacking the China. It's a real significant benefit for the Beis HaShrita to be full of blood. You know why? If there's still blood on the neck, that's a sign, according to Rashi, that it's fresh. It's fresh meat. That's a sign that it's fresh meat. And this way, people in those days didn't have refrigeration. So you wanted to make sure that this animal was shechted not 6 hours ago, but 20 minutes ago, so that it would still be fresh. And that's what people would buy. So they still see blood on the neck. That's tzeveya, and it's actually a sign to people to come buy this because it must be very, very fresh. That this is fresh meat, they'll come and shecht it. So I said 20 minutes ago, Rashi says at least they know it was shechted today. It wasn't left overnight. And again, without refrigeration, meat probably starts to deteriorate after it's left out overnight. There are others who learn that the reason why he wanted blood on the neck is because it would be an indication that it was properly shechted. I remember whenever I used to go from school at the corner of Charleswood and Bathurst, there was a busser store. And there would be chickens hanging there with their heads on, with no slit necks. And they would say, busser. So I used to always wonder, how could this be kosher meat if there was no shechita done? So the fact that the base of shechita is all red shows that this was properly prepared. Now we're talking about hides. So you salted the hide, and that was one of the process. That's actually how you started tanning. The chemical process started with salting. So the problem is that when you tan leather, that's what you do. You salt it. So moichai and ma'abdoi are really the same thing. Hainu moilech, hainu ma'abed. So we don't have 39, we have 38 because these are really the same items. Rabbi Yochanan Rosh Lakish Dharma Tevayu, you're right. Apik chad minayu, va'ayil sirtut. In fact, you're right. Moilech and ma'abed are not two separate malachas; they're one and the same. And they actually say that we have to take out moilech, and we have to add sirtut into the Mishnah. So I guess they're changing the gears to the Mishnah. Sirtut is like we have in our Sefer Torah. They make lines with a knife first to show the lines. That's not what it is. It's similar to that. When they would prepare leather and they would cut it into straps, they wouldn't just slice it freehand. Rather, they would make marks on it with a scraper to make the line in it, so that the person that actually cut the hide into straps cut it on the line and cut it the right size and the right length. Amar Rabba Bar Hafuna, Haiman Damalach Bisra. What if you salt meat? Salting meat. Chayiv mishum ma'abed, that would be chayiv al ma'abed. So salting meat is chayiv al ma'abed. Rashi says, no, Rashi doesn't say. Rav Amar, ein ibud ba'oichum. There is no such thing as ibud by food. Ibud only applies for non-food items. Amar Bashi v'afilu Rabba Bar Huna. Lo Amar, even Rabba Bar Huna, who held that b'milech basar is chayiv mishum ma'abed, it's only ela de kaboila le'orcha. When you salt meat, it gets hard and dry. That's not really improving it. But Rabbi Bar Huna says if you salt it because you want to preserve it, you want to make beef jerky, that's where salting does have a good impact, and it hardens it up because you want to preserve it. That's when Rabbi Bar Huna says malicha is a problem. But otherwise, it won't be a problem. Avalavesa, if you're going to eat it fresh now, loimash ve'inish michla etz. Nobody wants to make his food into a piece of wood. So that definitely would not be a malacha unless you actually have a benefit, unless you actually want to harden up your food. Now, this is very relevant. Yes.
Are we talking about cooked meat or raw meat?
Raw meat.
Because when you salt it, you have it draws the blood out also. And that's the whole reason why you salt meat when you consecrate.
Right, but that's not a malacha. You're actually allowed to do it.
Okay.
That malicha is
It's
not
only-
the malicha the Gemara is talking
What it's called curing. Curing is also.
This is talking about preserving it with salt.
Yeah, but if you happen to do that at the same time, so that's not a problem.
If you are trying to preserve it,
No, if you the blood, drawing the blood out of it is not an issue.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think. I mean, actually, the Mechaber. We'll look up the halachas in a minute. I believe it's. I think he mentioned it's not a problem. I wasn't focusing on it, but I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
Now he does bring down over here. There's halach of any ibn ba'oichel. So he brings down that there's a shaila if you're allowed to salt eggs. The Rambam says that you're allowed to salt eggs. I mean, the Gemara says you're allowed to salt eggs, and the Rambam says the reason why you're allowed to salt eggs is because it's not a derech to marinate or pickle eggs. Rashi says it's about that it becomes hard. But the Rambam says things that's the derech to pickle would be a problem. Things that aren't the derech to pickle would not be a problem. So we're going to learn an important halacha because this is where it becomes relevant. Are you allowed to salt if you have cucumbers on a plate, radishes on a plate? Are you allowed to salt them? The halacha is you're not allowed to because it does start to make it meluach, and that's not allowed. But derech achila it's allowed. So one at a time, as you eat them, you're allowed to dip each one into salt or put some salt on it and eat it because that's called derech achila. But if you put it on the plate and salt it, that's not allowed. Let's run through those halachas because those are very much also halacha l'maisa in our sugya. So let's see what the halacha says over here. Asur l'mloyach basar mevushel. So this already answers Duvi's halacha. You're not allowed to salt meat that was cooked already, or beitzim mevushelas lahanicha if you're preserving it. But when you're talking about kashering, it's not a problem. But let's look at the earlier halacha. Yesh misha kasav. Or let's go back over. Asur l'mloyach chatichos tznoin dalar ahei biyachad. You're not allowed to salt 4 or 5 pieces of radish. It looks like he's trying to marinate or pickle it. And kovish is also each piece of radish you could salt on its own. Need it. But eggs mutter l'mocha. So let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. Tznoin. Anything that you would want to salt, which are cucumbers, chayim raw. Something that you would not pickle, something that you would never pickle, you would be allowed to salt. But cucumbers, radishes, anything that could be pickled, even tomatoes, you wouldn't be allowed to salt only as you're eating it because again, derech achila, nothing's awesome. Dalar hebi achad. So the Mechaber says only if it's multiples, but if each piece is by itself, it doesn't look like you're being ma'abed, which is the halacha that we're learning now. But when you're going to salt them all together, I feel even if your intention is not to marinate them or to pickle them, you plan to eat them right away. Nevertheless, and you don't plan to let it soak in salt for a long time until the moisture comes out of the vegetable and it starts to get pickled. It's also if you actually let them sit with their salt and it starts extracting water, even if you do it with one piece, that's not a gzer, that's also meikar din, it's a deraisa. When you're salting, it's even one piece is usher unless you're eating it right away. So if you want to put salt on vegetables, you don't. You dip each vegetable into salt individually right before you put it into your mouth. When the our minig nowadays, where we cut small slices of radish, you put them on a plate, you salt them all together, and then you pour vinegar on it, and then you eat it. This that people do, the Mishabur is protesting it, it seems like it's going to be Asr. Asr Medina. I feel a even if you're eating right away, it seems like the Shulchan Aruch says that you're not allowed to do multiple pieces at a time. The only way you're allowed to salt vegetables is if you dip each vegetable on its own into the salt. The Nira. But of course, the Mishmur wants to be Melamed Schos on those who are doing this. Why it's not a deraisa? The Kivan, the Eimanich Noise Klal Lazia, they're not letting the salt cause the moisture to come out of the vegetables or the radishes that they're salting here. Rather, that what they would do is in those days, right after they put salt, right after that they poured vinegar over these cut up radishes. The gamidim acherim and other things they put on this mixture. Therefore, loidami liibud is not called ibud. The chol shekeinim shoyfkin sham shemen takef. And surely, if you put oil right away, because oil is unique, so shemen machlish koyach hamelach. Oil automatically stops any chemical reaction. We make lettuce salad. It's very common to eat salad on Shabbos. When they first salt the lettuce leaves, and then they let it sit that way. They let the water that comes out of the leaves drain off. That's mamash ibud. And then first they put dressing on it. That iser gomer. That's for sure. Aser. So the halach is if you're making salad, we learned yesterday you're not allowed to cut very small pieces because it's a problem of teichen. The other problem that you could run into when you're making salad is you're not allowed to salt the salad, but after you put the dressing on, or after you put the oil on, then you are allowed to salt the salad. Because once you put oil or dressing on the salad, it'll neutralize any effect that the salt would have, any pickling or marinating properties that the salt would have. Since there's already oil in the salad, it would negate that, and then it wouldn't be a problem. So when we make salad today, the way we have to do it is we have to do it by first putting oil or some other dressing on the salad, and only then are we allowed to put salt on the salad. So that was the Hilchos salad. Okay, let's see the Gemara back to it.
Yossi, one second. Is it a problem? Let's say you have pickles in Shabbos, then you have leftover pickles. Would you be allowed to put them back into the jar?
First of all, I'm not a posik, so I could only offer entertainment about this. But why should it be usher? Because you're pickling it further.
Is there such a thing? Yeah.
It's already pickled.
I don't know. Does it make it pickle more?
Isn't pickle called bishul and ain't bishul like a bishul? Is that?
Oh, it's a good point. It would be English like a bishul because it's pickled.
I think some people have a problem putting it back into the jar because the jar hasn't been toiveled.
Is that the reason why people don't put it back in?
I heard that from somebody. Somewhere else. He doesn't put stuff back into the jar because
why would he eat it in the first place?
No, the first time you can take it out, but when you put it back in, now you're saying you're using the jar. You're reusing the jar. That's what he said.
Everything we buy in a jar, it wasn't toiveled. So you're allowed to take something out. The question is if you're allowed to reuse the jar.
You reuse it. That's right. So that's the whole thing about reusing, right? If you want to take a jar and reuse it, I think Rav Moshe said that if removing the label is makabah patish on the jar. So you as the yid are doing the makabah patish. You take the jar, you rinse it out, you take off the label. That's the makabah patish. But I think most people don't hold like that. So, but anyway, if you take the pickle out and then you put the pickle back in the jar, now you're reusing the jar, and you'd have to.
I don't understand the question. If there's a pickle out, you eat it. Who puts it back?
Getting back to Yisrael's question, I think it's relevant if you want to put the leftover salad back into a container and save it for Shalosh Shudas, then it's marinating longer. I think then the question would apply a little bit more.
But once there's dressing or oil in it, there is no more marination happening. So the problem of salting gets neutralized the moment it comes into contact with oil.
But if you made cucumber salad, right, which doesn't have necessarily oil, which is just salt and vinegar, and then you want to put it back in the jar.
The Mishnah actually said that vinegar also
said the same thing. I didn't see it. Okay, so then but putting back so it stops the process even with vinegar. That's what the Mishnah Berurah said.
Yeah, but the truth of the matter is, even when you're putting back cucumber salad, when you took out the cucumber salad, you put it in a serving dish. There's some vinegar with it as well. Putting it back in the jar. Why would that change?
No, I'm saying if you made it fresh, You made it fresh Shabbos morning and you served it because you ate it right away, right? And now you have leftovers and you want to put it back in the jar.
Why would putting it back in the jar make a difference?
Because then it looks like pickling, because then it stays and it's marinating for a lot
longer.
longer.
And if I leave it in the bowl, in the serving dish, it's still pickling. It's still in the same sauce and same.
I don't know if that's what we're saying. I don't know if that's derech of pickling something in a jar. I had a hard time with it. If I want to make a salad and I put it in a jar and I start shaking it around, then I'm showing the das that I want to have it pickled. Right. So now when I'm putting it back in the jar, it takes on a fresher process, not so much for the leftover pickles, but now I created a new plastic jar, a new location for it to pickle. That's all. That's why I thought Yisroel was going with that question.
Well, there's such a thing as half sour. So I don't know if when you put it back in the jar, if you leave it there longer, does it become full sour?
Well, if you buy half sour pickles and you don't use them for 6 months, do they become full sour?
Right. I don't know.
It's sitting there for 6 months anyway.
Okay. As the Chassidus should say, the krach from the pickle. We need to get clear the krach from the pickle. Gezakt the Gemara weiter. Mamachkoi is scraping and smoothing out the leather, usually scraping out any hairs that are on it. And chatcha means cutting it to size. Omer Bacha bar Chanina, Hashof bein ha'amudim, b'Shabbos chayiv mishum mamachik. If someone, they used to have gazebos in those days, so they would have a big patio that would have posts at intervals holding it up, but in between the posts, it was wide open. So if you would rub, Rashi says, you had these posts, shasuyim chalonis, meaning they were set at intervals, so they were holding up the roof. And the roof was resting on these posts. If you would rub at the bottom, so if you rub the ground so that the ground underneath this gazebo should be smooth, you're chayiv al mamachik. As a matter of fact, Reb Shimon Eider talks about this. What if you got mud on your shoes? Are you allowed to scrape them off on the grass? You're not allowed to, because it could be mamachik. He says you're only allowed to scrape it off on a sharp stair, but you wouldn't be allowed to scrape it off on the ground because you're ending up smoothing out the ground. Amar Bacha bar Chanina, Shofin Amudim b'Shabbos chayiv mishum mamachik. Amar Pchi bar Abba Gimel Dvorim Sochli Reb Ashi Mishmei de Rebbe Shubin Levi. Reb Ashi told me 3 things in the name of Rebbe Shubin Levi. Number 1, Hamegarer Rosh Klunsos b'Shabbos chayiv mishum machatach. If you had spears, I'm not sure. You had these posts or these sticks. I'm not sure what they were used for, but they were sharp. If you rub on them on Shabbos, it's like you're sharpening them, so you're chayiv mishum machatech. I mean, the only thing that comes to my mind is if you take a pool stick and you use those chalk things to rub the top of it, that would be machatech. If you smear on your bandage or on your skin, if you smear some type of ointment, so if you want to use ointment on Shabbos, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to smear it on a gauze pad, and then on Shabbos you're allowed to put on that gauze pad because it's pre-smeared, but you're not allowed to smear on Shabbos. This means after you, yes.
That's plaster.
Misates is Evan?
No.
Or Memarech Ratia?
Yeah.
Memarech Ratia is plaster. Rashi is machlik tachboshes al hamaka. You're putting a thing on hamaka, so you put plaster right on your skin?
Yeah. It's not.
That's what they used to do?
Yeah.
So if you put plaster on your skin, again, it's acting as an ointment that would not be allowed. But you could put it on the gauze before Shabbos and then put it on your hand. Nowadays, we probably don't use plaster anymore. Nowadays, we use neosporin. But I guess in those days, plaster actually had healing properties to it.
And protective.
Look at that. So if someone does drywall, I call him a doctor.
That's right.
Oh, you see, we have to have respect for our drywallers. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter.
What's a cast made out of?
Plaster, deep, yeah.
Right.
That's right. So yes, someone who engages in plaster work is in fact a doctor. You're saying very good. You're saying very good. The Satis Evan means chiseling it, but it's not chiseling it out of the quarry. After you have the rock, after you've chiseled out the block from the quarry, it's already a block. If you continue chiseling it, not because you want to form it anymore, that additional chiseling after the rock is already out. Rashi says, "Machlikat smooths it out and it makes it shiny." So that's a makeh b'patish. Chayiv mishum makeh b'patish. Omer Reb Shimon ben Kisma, and I think the Bach has changed it to Reb Shimon ben Bizna. Let me see the Bach. Omer Reb Shimon bar Bisna. Yeah. Omer Reb Shimon ben Lakish. Let's see where we are. Hatzor tzura b'chli. If you have a keli and you scrape out a form in it, let's say you have a becher and you scrape a design into it, or v'aminapeach b'chli skuchas, or if you blow a glass keli, chayiv mishum makeh b'patish. You'll be chayiv. It's makeh b'patish to find the malacha that's done on the glass. You're not chayiv for making the glass because there's no binyan ustir b'kelim according to Rashi. So the only isser that you can have when you make a keli would be makeh b'patish.
Yes, if you engrave letters, is that double?
Yeah, then you get double trouble because then you're writing also. It's a good point. Amri Haiman the Shakal Akufi Meglimi Chayiv. You have a new beged, a new jacket. There's some thread sticking out of it. If you cut those threads off, that's finalizing the beged. Chayiv Mishamak Padish. By the middle of the couple line, that's only the type of threads or things sticking out that you would be makbid on. If you don't even worry about those, then it's already completed. That wouldn't be makbid padish. The Mishabura says, let's say there's 4 or 5 threads, and you cut 4 out of 5, and you still left 1, then there wouldn't be makbid padish. It's only the last one that would be the problem. So therefore, if you have a new suit and there's fibers hanging out of it, and you want to pull them out, as long as you leave 1, it won't be a problem. If you write 2 letters, what if you wrote 1 big letter? You made a massive aleph. The Yeshbem Koima Lichtenstein. But you could have written 2 smaller alephs in that same space, but you didn't. Potter, you're going to be potter because by ksiva it has to be 2 oisios. And like we said, the reason why those oisios were there is because when they were building the Mishkan, they lettered each of the kroshim because they all have to go back in the same place. And it was 1 letter in each keresh that had to match up. So that's why the ksiva is with 2 oisios. Machak ois gedoyla. What if you're being over the ois of the ver mechika, you're erasing, and there's a big ois that you rubbed out, the yesh b'mkoima lichtevstein, and you could have written 2 oisios in that space, then it's chayiv, because you made a mechika that is now able to be filled in with 2 letters. And the Meforshim tell us that, let's say there was an aleph there, and you erased the aleph, and you could make 2 yuds there, then you're not chayiv. You're only chayiv if you can write 2 alephs there. So you're chayiv if you erased a space big enough that you could write 2 of the letters that you erased. So if you erased an aleph, you have to be able to write 2 alephs in that space, not 2 yuds. So that's a kula because you have to erase a bigger area. Omer Benachem Bar Yossi v'zech chomer b'moichik b'bekosev. Here you see a chomer in the isser of mechika over the isser of ksiva. Because in the isser of mechika, even if you only erase 1 letter, you'll be chayiv, provided that the space was big enough to now write 2 letters in it. But by writing, you have to actually write 2 letters. And if you don't write 2 letters, then there is no isser of mechika. So to Gemara weiter. The other halacha is, by mechika, it's only if you erase a letter that you're going to be chayiv. If there's scribbles or something that's not a letter, and you're erasing it so that you can write a letter, that won't be mechika either. You actually have to be erasing a letter. Haboina v'asoiser, you're building, you're breaking, a machaba, you're putting out a fire, v'amavir, you're lighting a fire, v'amaka v'patish. Rabba v'arabzer domer tavayu, kol midi, the ispe gemar malacha, any action that you're doing, that your action finalizes the work that you're doing, chayiv mishum maka v'patish. That would be mechayiv yotz maka v'patish. Then the Mishnah says, these are the avos malachas and none others. Elu lafuke, what are we trying to be memayid? Lafuke with Reb Elazar, the mechayiv al toil de b'makam av. Reb Elazar's mechayiv al toil de b'makam av. So if you did a toil and you did an av together, you'd be mechuyev 2 korbanos, 2 chatois. The end of the Mishnah saying Elo Avos Melachos, so these only are coming to tell us that we don't hold like Rabbi Elazar. Question that Tosfos asks is, it already says at the beginning of the Mishnah a minyan. It says there's 39 Melachos. So wouldn't you know that already from the beginning of the Mishnah? So I think Tosfos answers, or other Rishonim answer, that from the first line of the Mishnah where it says there's only 39 Melachos, you would know that if you do 2 toldos, you'd only get 1 malchus. Or if you did the Av twice, you only get 1 malchus. But if you did a tolda and the Av, maybe you get 2 malchus. For that, we need the second half of the Mishnah to tell us that even if you did a tolda and the Av, you only get 1 malchus. Chaser achas. So it says in Elu Avos Melachos Arboim Chaser achas. Why is there this extra miyut? The Tanya of Yehuda, Moisef es a shovet and medaktik. Shovet and medaktik are 2 little actions that are done in the weaving process. Shovet means when you run the yarn from post to post, which is called the warp threads. When you run the warp threads, they would be shovetim. What shovet means, Rashi says, is mashva shesi the karkar shakon rebel. They would smooth it out. Sometimes, if you're running a whole bunch of threads, right, you might have 200 threads running side by side. One thread could go over the other thread. So it's smoothing it out to make sure all the threads are nicely and neatly lined up. That's the shovet, and the medaktik is when you put the string back and forth through the waft thread that you pour back and forth through, you pull on it to tighten it, and you tap on it to make sure that it's smooth and that the fabric is nicely laid out and not scrunched or loose anywhere. So he holds that those are additional malachas. Amruloi, those aren't additional malachas; those are merely parts of the other main categories of malacha that we identified as part of the weaving process. So the shovet is part of the mesach process to make sure all the threads are lined up properly and none overlaps the other. And medaktik oirig, and the malacha of ariga is when you're putting the waft thread back and forth. Part of that is to make sure that it's not too tight or not too loose, and that the fabric sits nicely. There's another rule that was said. So remember, the first Mishnah says klal gadol, and in one shot of the Gemara, it's klal gadol is because there's a small klal that comes after that. Now the rest of the parak, the Mishnayos are going to be analyzing in more depth each of the 39 malachas that our first Mishnah listed off. So the first that the Mishnah is starting with is actually starting with Haitzah. So it's interesting that the first malacha that this Mishnah addresses is not the first malacha in the last Mishnah. It's actually the last malacha in the first Mishnah, and it's Haitzah. And it's saying Haitzah, anything that you carry out will not be a malacha Haitzah. There are certain conditions about what you carry. Kol hakosher latzniya. If it's something that you would normally save, in other words, you're not going to save garbage. There's only certain things you would save. Umatzniim kamayu, and the amount that you have, you'd save. For instance, you might save a teaspoon of salt, but you wouldn't save 1 grain of salt. So it has to be something that you would save, and it has to be in a quantity that you would save. Then, Shabbos, chayiv chatas olav. Only then are you chayiv chatas. But if it's something that nobody would ever save, it's really useless. Or it is something that someone would save, but the quantity that you have is so small, again, it has no value. You wouldn't be chayiv only if you have one guy who would want to save 1 grain of salt. So to him, it's important. So if he carries that out, it would be a malacha. But if somebody else carried it out who doesn't have any value for that salt, then it wouldn't be a malacha.
Yes. Did you give a sample of Eine Kosher Latznia?
That's exactly what the Gemara is going to ask right now. So it's going to be some gross out things that nobody would want to save. What's Eine Kosher? So the Gemara is asking exactly David Leighton's kasha. What is something that nobody would save? Rav Papa Omer lafuki dam nida. No one is going to save dam nida. I don't think anybody could possibly argue on that. Maruk Omer lafuki atzei sheira. Woodfell and the sheira, which Rashi tells us is the Suri Hano Ninu. It's Asher Bano umeisi. It's disgusting because it's isra no v'tzorach la'abdam. So again, Rav Papa says something like damnida is disgusting, so nobody would save that. So if you carry that on Shabbos, there would be no isser. Or kavamar lafuke atzei yashera. Man damer damnida. I'm sorry.
Anita Shaila, you have a Badika cloth. It's less than Gimel al Gimel, right? It's small and it's got.
That's a very, very good Shaila. It's a very good Shaila. The Acharayim speak out that this is speaking after you showed it, so you don't need it anymore. Yeah, if you still need it, then
you're not going to use it for a bookmark.
That's right. Aval damnida. So what did it say? Manda amar asay shera. Aval damnida matnelei l'shunra. She would save it to feed to her cat. The idach and the other mandamar who holds that damnida is something you don't save, is kivan the cholsha loy matznalei. Fascinating. What does Rashi say? Kivan the cholsha hamaychel dam ha'odam l'chasul. If you feed human blood to a cat, nasa chalash oisei odam. The person who actually feeds blood to a cat becomes weak. And since the person becomes weak, not the cat, the person becomes weak. Therefore, they wouldn't serve it to a cat. There's actually a shaila if it's the person who feeds it or if it's the woman who the blood came from that becomes weak if it's fed to a cat. And because it has absolutely no value, if you carried it, it wouldn't be a problem. They actually say that that's one of the reasons why it says that someone who burns his nails is considered a tzaddik. I don't know what the Lashon HaGemara is, but we learned it. The reason why it's a tzaddik is because it's possible.
It's called chassid. Sorry, Tzvi.
Chassid. It's called a chassid. The reason why it's called a chassid is because when you destroy a part of a human body, it creates weakness in the person who the body came from. So if you throw out your nail, if you burn your nails, you're destroying them. You'll also have that weakness. So he's a chassid because to protect people from walking on it, he's even willing to do harm to himself. That's why he's considered a chassid. That's what the Rabbi Elephant spoke out. Omer Beis Bechanina, hi the loy Reb Shimon. This Mishnah is not consistent with Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon, ha'amar loy amar kol hashurim alolu ela l'matzni ehen. All of these shiurim were only said to those people who actually do it, but people who wouldn't say them wouldn't be chayiv. Okay, so the article actually speaks out that there's actually two separate halachas in our Mishnah that Reb Shimon is arguing on. One halacha that he's arguing on is he holds that once I'm machshav something, not only would it be usher for me to carry, it might be usher for other people to carry as well. That's one halacha that he argues on. And the other halacha that he argues on, I'm actually forgetting, it was a little bit late when I learned this Gemara, so let's see how the article describes it. He says it very nicely. So it says, according to Reb Shimon, the minimum amount for liability are only negea for the average person who stores that amount. Oh, but if it's a wealthy person, so let's say you have a teaspoon of salt that everybody would consider valuable, so everybody's chayiv, no matter who you are, no matter how rich you are, everybody's chayiv for transporting a teaspoon of salt. Reb Shimon says, no, if I'm a very rich person and I don't have a cheshivas for a teaspoon of salt, then for me, even a teaspoon of salt would not be usher. So that's what it means. She'eni kosher matzniyeen, meaning even though the Mishnah says that something that's a derech to save is going to be considered usher for everybody, Reb Shimon knows no, every person is on his own, and if you wouldn't save that amount of salt, then you would be allowed to carry it out. Only people who would save it, only they cannot carry. That's the first halacha that he argues on. The other halacha that he argues on is if a person stored an item, he's liable only for carrying out the stated minimum amount. Let me see what he says up here. I'm getting mixed up. She's over here. According to our Mishnah, if a person actually stores and then carries out less than the minimum amount, he's going to be chayiv anyway. And according to Reb Shimon, he's only going to be chayiv if he carried out the minimum amount. That's what he says over here. Okay, we'll get more into it tomorrow. I'll get a Clark on tomorrow, and we'll clarify everything tomorrow. Okay, gewaltig. So have a wonderful day.
Shkoyach, yes.
And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Shkoyach.
So did anybody hear about if they're opening up any shuls for Shavuos? I hear some chatter on it. Did anybody hear anything about it?
Nope.
Officially, it's only with a car. So
it's only what?
With a car, and you can't get out of the car. So then people are saying, well, I have a non-motorized vehicle for my religious purpose. I don't know. A lot of crazy chat going out there.
Uh-huh. So it looks like we're going to be learning Shavuos night at home.
Yeah, or in bed.
Well, you'll be at home, or I'll be at home.
You know,
I don't know about the little.
They always say that if how different would our Kazayas more look if we ate it in shul, and how different would our esrog look if we only shook our lulav at home. So I wonder how our Shavuos night will look if we do it at home.
I know.
Hashem should help. We should very soon be able to get out of our
isolation. If you want to learn, I'm trying to create an Erev Shavuos program where all the Shurim are learning together just in breakout rooms, somewhat to try to recapture that atmosphere that there's a lot of Shurim going on, and then we'll all gather in the main room to hear Aseres Adibris. So is 5 o'clock Erev Shavuos okay with everybody?
That's right. What time is Yontiv?
Yontiv's late. Yontiv you have to wait till say, so it's around 10 to 9, I think, or something like that. It's like Seder. It's around 10 to 9.
Why don't we make it a little later then?
It's up to you. People still have to prepare. Normally, I like to sleep Erev Shavuos, right?
We also have to modify. We have to modify the Zoom program because the Zoom program only allows you to wave or to clap. We have to have a popcorn icon and an ice cold soda icon so Shmuel could display that.
Maybe you should get Finkelshire to start before the Aseres Adibros. Then we can kick them out.
Oh, Shmuel, keep the stick down. I told you. I had a discussion with Mayor. We got to shut off the YouTube.
I think I would get the most penalties for instigating.
I spoke to the mayor about it yesterday. Just stop the